being on my spiritual path for quite some times, I have found that there are two layers in the process of awakening. So the first layer is to realize who we are beyond the mind and the body. We are spiritual beings. To realize means to begin living that truth, which is different from just understanding. And the second layer is to begin understanding that the physical life experience require the usage of the mind and the body, and to transfer that energy of the spiritual essence into the mind. And what I mean by that is to begin able to see yourself as perfection, to be able to see yourself as the best of what you can experience, to be able to remove all the limitations around your belief and thinking and your emotion. And that is called divine self, to the self-image of you that is closest to the divine. And in Bible, they use the term Christ consciousness. So in this video, I want to dissect and explain a little bit about this concept and what needs to happen in order for us to begin forming, constructing Christ consciousness. So let's go one by one. So what do I mean by the realization of the spiritual essence? So when we understand as an information and a knowledge, I use the term understanding or recognizing. So many people have this internal feeling that there's more to life. And people think that or feel that there's more to life because the experience that they have been using the five senses feels not sufficient to feel whole and to feel full, or there is some part of them that have a tendency to focus on the lack. Most of us have some sort of tendency to focus on the lack because that's how most people experience and live life, and also that's how we were programmed. That's how we were programmed. And when the focus is on the lack, there's an absence of wholeness, and they feel like there's something is missing. There are different needs in human motivation, so we're not gonna go into that detail. Sometimes those needs needs to be fulfilled in order for them to feel expansive, feel the flow in their life. But that's gonna be probably another YouTube topic. So once you recognize and understand that you are more than the physical, you are spiritual, how do we transfer that idea, understanding, and knowledge into realization? So I use the term realization when you accept that idea that you have conceptually in your mind to a subconscious. So you are feeling, you are fully believing, and you are embodying, and you are living that spiritual being of who you are. So instead of me, that's the process of shifting from understanding recognition mentally to embodying and to realize. So the first layers of awakening is to realize that you and I and all of us are spiritual beings. Now, let's talk about what you might be already accepting. What is it that you're accepting? So you have a role in the world, because each one of us has this identity, things called identity. And when you have your identity role, once you start getting used to that role, you start accepting. So an example that can relate to a lot of people is that, let's say if you are in a company working, and then if you're new to that role, you feel a little bit feeling uncomfortable or not familiar, right? But as the time passed by, and then if the things progress, you start demonstrating and living and doing the thing in relation to people that you're surrounded by. You have the task that you're doing every single day, and that start becoming familiar, and you start feeling like that is you without thinking about it. So that process from not feeling familiar to becoming familiar, you are actually accepting, your subconscious is now starting to accept who you are becoming in that process. I hope that makes sense. Like, there's so many different examples that I can give, but the role and accepting that role at the subconscious level is when your role start feeling natural and you don't need to really think about it, but you're already doing when you notice it. Yeah. So you don't need to think about wanting to have a spiritual experience, but you're actually living from that place. So your physical experience now has become an extension expression of how you are spiritually. Then, when that shift happens, you are now embodied. Let me explain this again, because from a different standpoint and perspective, because that shift is what makes you realize and accept instead of holding that idea in your head. Many people want to believe that they're a spiritual being and then having a physical experience. But because most people are disconnected from the source, they're ending up having, and then when you disconnect from the source, what happens is that the mechanical mind start taking over, and day-to-day activity, transaction becomes a norm, and that start taking over, losing intention. The mechanical life start becoming their habitual way of being, and intention gets neglected, and they start living like a robot mechanically the way they have been living yesterday, last week, and last year. Yeah. So then when you find yourself living mechanically, because living mechanically feels like a natural and default, but it's not filling up your inner being, you start wanting to have a spiritual experience, because internally, because that is who we are always gonna crave that if we're not living it. Yeah. So many people wants to believe that we're a spiritual being, and in this earth plane we're having a physical experience. But the way that most people live is that they live as if they are physical being, getting exhausted, mechanical, frustrated. Something happens and they want to have a spiritual experience, right? Now, if we are living as if we are a physical being, we will never be able to embody the spiritual essence, because we're thinking and experiencing things backwards. Yeah. So, in order to be able to bring that spiritual essence into this physical experience, we want to have intention, we want to have a connection with the creator, we want to have love, we want to cultivate freedom within, we want to cultivate wholeness within, and we want to be able to make that as a natural way of being, instead of trying to seek in the outside, to let that unfold from the inside, right? So when you are embodying the essence of spiritual beingness of who we are, that is the realization of the spiritual essence, which is very different from understanding and having an idea that we are a spiritual being. So that is the first layer of that awakening process. Now, and then this is not something that once you wake up, it can become your default state. But what I found is that people will kind of flip-flop back and forth by having a life based on the spiritual being, but then go back to having a physical beingness and wanting to have a spiritual experience. So we want to stay in that energy, especially because not many people around us are living that way. So because not many people around us are living that way, one of the human nature is that we tend to conform and wants to be a part of mass. Then, because the masses are not living that way, we start kind of being absorbed by that energy, and we found ourselves living a physical beingness, wanting to have a spiritual experience. Okay, let's talk about the second layer of that awakening. So, in many spiritual practices, that is what the spiritual practice does, right? To sort of let go of the ego, the defense, and going to this place of oneness. And what I found is that there is a meaning and a purpose and objective of this material world. And when we begin really realizing the essence inside of us, including embracing the physical material world that we're living, where we arrive is that there's no really distinction, separation, or sometimes we use the term duality of the spiritual and the physical. But the physical world that we're surrounded by is highly spiritual. And the spiritual plane is the seed of the physical, and they're one. So when we begin merging that, what that means in this process of conversation of the second layer of awakening is that the mind that thinks and the identity and the role that we're playing needs to merge and blend with the quality of the spiritual essence. So what that really means is to form the divine self in you, which is the main topic of this video, which means to develop and awaken the Christ consciousness inside of you. Now, I don't come from a Catholic background. I don't come from Christian teaching. I just happen to like and enjoy and incorporate a lot of the things that the Bible states. And one of them is to form a Christ consciousness, which I also call the divine self. So what is self? Self is an image of you in your mind. Self is an image of you in your mind. And that self lives nowhere else but only inside of your mind. So who you see yourself as in your mind, the picture inside of your head, let's just use the term, only lives inside of your head, and how others around you perceive you lives in others' head. How you see somebody next to you lives only in your head, in your mind. So self is interesting. Nobody is going to be able to see your divine self, yourself, the conception of you, because it only lives inside of you. Now, let's go a little bit deeper. So that self that you see in your mind is going to be connected to that sense of worth, self-esteem, the feeling about you in your body, in your subconscious mind. Those goes hand in hand. So constructing the divine self in you is to be able to see yourself as somebody who has all your desire fulfilled. All your desire fulfilled. What you're desiring, right? Who you want to become, how you want to be living, what you are surrounded by, and what kind of identity you're forming to be able to demonstrate and live and enjoy the life that you are meant to live. That is the divine self. That is the Christ consciousness. And because soul is seeking forever expansion, and the urge of the soul transmute into a heart desire, and based on what we desire, we construct and create things in the physical world. What we want to be thinking is expansive thoughts. The moment we contract, we are not honoring that energy urge of the soul seeking fuller expression. So what makes you feel good using through your thoughts and your emotion and feeling and belief is what we want to contemplating and practicing. So when do you know that you have accomplished or arrived at the Christ consciousness? When you are feeling unlimited, when you are feeling absolutely free, when you learn how to love yourself and love the world. I'm gonna talk, this is what happens whenever I engage and create and speak for the YouTube video. While I'm talking, another topic comes up. I want to create a topic, a video on love, because for many people, love is misunderstood. attached love can mean love for a lot of people. Attached love is another form of fear. So when you are in fully love, there's no attachment. Yeah. The moment you have a little attachment, that is not called love. It's called fear. So another topic. So the Christ consciousness in you is what we want to form and practice to be able to create the divine self in you. The process, how we want to begin, everybody, this one is to begin solidifying your desire, right? Desire of how your life experience will look and feel. And the life outside experience that you are coming across is a reflection and mirror of your becoming. Your becoming consists of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and belief. So the Christ consciousness is that who you are becoming internally, energetically, to be the seed of the attraction of the life circumstance that you're desiring to live. The experience that gives you the most fulfillment and unlimited expansion, that you feel in constant joy and you feel in a constant state of ease. There's no pressure, there's no resistance, but there's only flow. So practicing forming a perspective for every single, let's say, obstacle, to be able to ease the mind, to lean into a positive expansive thought, to lean into an expansive feeling, to break down all the limiting beliefs, so the belief that you have continues to expand, align with how the soul wants to be expressed through you, is the process of the second layer of awakening. And we want to use every single life circumstance, moment to moment, to do just that. Every single obstacle that you come across, every single contrast that you face is an opportunity to cultivate your Christ consciousness, divine self in you. How do we do that? By choosing the perspective, how you see that situation, because the way you are choosing to see the situation represent the filter glasses that you're wearing. And that is the perspective. The divine self in you can only be constructed by forming a divine perception. And then the more you practice forming a divine perception, you start choosing thoughts differently and your beliefs start expanding. And then you use that every single moment to create that, and you will soon realize that you are having this lifestyle practice, a way of living, of coming across that intersection and then constantly choosing the perspective that gives you an uplifting, expansive state. That is the practice process of forming a Christ consciousness, divine self in you. It's a lifetime practice, and it's a great one, because only when you have that practice, you're letting the soul inside of you to shine through you, to be able to accomplish the life that you are meant to live, and to answer the call. Every single one of us has this calling, purpose, and different vehicle to express through. But the true calling for all of us, I believe, is to demonstrate and construct the Christ consciousness, divine self in you. See you in the next video.